To think chaos is good for stock markets because stocks are up again today. Not bad. Let's check out our comments and then we can do a show that you deserve. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Bum, bum, bum. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams, and you've never had a better time. But if you'd like to try to take your experience up to levels that nobody can even understand with their tiny, shiny human brains, all you need for that would be a cup or a mug or a glass, a tanker, chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip, and it happens right now. Go. Excellent. Sublime. Well, according to the University of Amsterdam, conservative Americans consistently distrust science, a survey finds. Now, do you think there's something wrong with this analysis? The assumption is that you should trust science. Should you? Should you trust science when half of peer-reviewed papers don't pan out and healthcare science looks like it's completely made up and vaccinations are just barely tested in any way that you would recognize? What did I hear the other day? I think I heard that in some kind of drug testing, they do a pre-trial, and then the people who were had bad side effects in the pre-trial, they remove them, and then they go on with the trial. So they basically remove the people who had problems, and then they do the trial. So it's completely fake. And apparently that's a standard procedure to remove the people who had problems, then start the trial after that. No, I think conservatives are right. Science is sketchy. I think climate models are weird. I think that, plenty of reasons to doubt science. But here's some science. According to Neuroscience News, they figured out how to change LSD to take out the good parts, the part where you have hallucinations. And then they give it to schizophrenics, and apparently helps. That's the early word. So if you'd like to help a schizophrenic, all you need is some special LSD with a couple of molecules taken out. I don't know where you get it, but that's according to Neuroscience News. Do you believe that one? Do you conservatives trust that they've modified LSD to fix schizophrenics? What are the odds you'll ever see that, as like a standard treatment? I feel like every time I read any kind of science news during the show, my first thought is, we're never going to see that. Every single day I see a new study where, not a study, but an announcement where somebody's made a battery breakthrough. A great battery breakthrough. We can charge it in 10 seconds and it lasts 1,000 miles. We're never going to see that. All of these announcements are made up, I think. I mean, they're based on something, but I don't think any of that's going to turn into anything you care about. Well, let's see how smart you are. According to Rasmussen, what percentage of voters disagree with having ID to vote? What percent of voters disagree with being able to prove you're a citizen with ID before you vote? You are correct. Yeah, it's 26%, but if you guess 25, well, you're brilliant. I have the smartest audience in the entire world. Yep. 64% believe Congress should enact a law requiring proof of citizenship, in order to register to vote. But 26 disagree, 26%. If you're new to the show, it's sort of a running gag that no matter what the survey is, no matter what the topic is, 25% of the people who answer the survey will be just whack. They'll just have the wrong answer. Not having ID to vote, that's just the wrong answer. That's not an opinion. That's just wrong. You're just wrong. All right. So it turns out that dolphins can talk. So somebody's using AI to decipher dolphin talk. And I guess the idea is that we'd eventually be able to have a conversation with dolphins. And I, for one, can't get enough of that, because what if dolphins are really good conversationalists? That'd be weird, wouldn't it? It's like, not only do they talk, but they'd be like, "Hello, Mr. Adams. How was your day today?" And you'd be like, "Man, you're a good conversationalist." That'd be so cool. So I want to get a talking dolphin. And I think I just put some AI on it, and next thing you know, boom, talking. So that would be the first conversation, they say, between humans and another intelligent species. I don't know. I've been talking to my dog for a long time, but she doesn't talk back. So this happened the other day, but remember when Trump was with Bukele at the White House? And Trump was mocking Caitlin Collins of CNN, and he made the claim that CNN hates America. CNN hates America. And then Dana Bash was on as soon as they cut away from that. They went to Dana Bash, and she wanted to let us know that the CNN does not hate America. Now, let me give you a little persuasion tip. If you're defending yourself against the charge of hating America, you're already losing. Because as soon as you hear that, even if the only thing you heard was the defense and you didn't hear any of the accusations, you'd say to yourself, nobody ever asked me if I hate America. Why does CNN have to answer whether they hate America? Sounds a little sketchy, doesn't it? You're guilty if you just get in the conversation. So I think CNN should have maybe just ignored it. But instead, they defended that they don't hate America, which makes at least half of the people in the country go, "You don't? Well, I've seen your coverage, and it appears that you do. I'm not so sure you love America." Anyway, I'm sure they love America. Totally. I would say, however, that the claim that they do love America is what they call a baseless claim, because it was presented with no evidence whatsoever. Right? That's a baseless claim. When Trump said the 2020 election was rigged, the CNN people and most of the news said it's a baseless claim because there was no evidence. So, do they love America as CNN? They say so, but it's a baseless claim. No evidence presented. Well, here's some fake news that might be real news a little bit. So the Trump administration is going to ask Congress to cut funding for NPR and PBS. Now, you just said to yourself, yes, finally we get rid of NPR and PBS. No, that's not going to happen. The amount of funding that NPR and PBS get from the government, the federal government, was kind of trivial, so it won't make any difference at all. But you might feel better if you're not funding them. So that's how you could be the smartest person in the room. Next time somebody gets in a conversation about funding NPR and PBS, you can be the smartest one by saying their total funding doesn't have much to do with the federal government. It's like 1% or something like that. Meanwhile, a New Mexico man has been charged in arson attack on a Tesla showroom. Now, post-millennials writing about this. I'm starting to wonder if the Department of Justice is going to catch 100% of the domestic terrorists who are doing the Tesla stuff. At least the ones who burn down showrooms, because there must be cameras everywhere, between the cars and just security cameras. So I got another one. I don't know how many are still on the loose, but I feel like they're going to get them all, and then they should ship them to El Salvador and put them in those jails. I still have a question about those El Salvador jails, because how can you possibly keep El Salvador safe unless you never let them out? Is that actually the plan, that they're never let out because they're gang members? And how in the world would that even be slightly, humane? But nobody cares, I guess, because they're monsters. They're monsters. All right. So Biden's going to give his Joe Biden's going to give his first speech since he left office. How much would you love to hear that? He's going to be in Chicago, speaking to the advocates and counselors for the disabled. So he's going to give his speech. And aren't you super curious whether he can pull it off? Because, he's been in that mode for a while where his decline is happening kind of quickly. Why would he even agree to it? Doesn't it seem weird that he even agreed to it in the first place? Because it's all just nothing but downside for him. So maybe they just can't say no to him. It's like, I can do it. I can make a speech. Let me make a speech. All right, Joe. We'll let you do one at a small event. Speaking of Joe Biden, the Gateway Pundit and Just the News have been reporting on, I think John Solomon reporting on this, that now that there's some more unredacted emails, there's a complete link. You can see the entire criminal enterprise where Joe Biden was vice president, and he was negotiating deals for his son, who is on the board of Burisma. It was exactly what you thought. So the Biden crime family was exactly what you thought it was. Now, I don't think that Joe Biden will ever be prosecuted because he is a certain age and, like the special, who was it, her, who said that no jury would convict him because he's just like a amiable, crazy old man. So I think that Biden actually succeeded something like a life of crime, and he got away with it all the way to retirement. See, I think the trick is if you're going to get away with a life of crime, you have to act crazy at the end. So, wear your bathrobe everywhere, that sort of thing. It works for the mafia. So I think Joe Biden will be in a bathrobe pretty soon. That's my guess. But it kind of blows my mind that we don't have to guess. Was he abusing his office? Because we've got like his emails that were used as a pseudonym, and it's very clear he was negotiating, energy deals on behalf of his son. It's just amazing that we have all the evidence now, but we just look at it and go, "Oh, let's just talk about it among ourselves, like somehow it doesn't matter." So all those migrants who were flown in by Joe Biden, which to me was the weirdest thing. Remember when you first heard that the U.S. government was not just processing people at the border, but they were actively flying people in from other countries? Now, wasn't your first impression, no, that can't be true? Well, it can't be many people, right? It's not like there's a lot of people that are going to fly in by airplanes. And then you find out it's like over 500,000. 500,000 people were flown in from other countries because the Democrats apparently were trying to, stack the deck and get more Democrat voters or get more, get more representation, whatever they were after. But now a federal judge in Boston. So once again, the Democrats shop for a judge anywhere in the country. This one was in Boston. And they get this judge to make a ruling that affects things that are not in Boston. So I feel like the Supreme Court needs to slap this one down. But Bill Melugin was reporting on this, Fox News. But Trump was trying to remove their protection so he can ship them all back. And the federal judge said, no, you cannot do that. So what Trump wanted to do is revoke their legal status and then to basically revoke them all. And I think the judge said that every person has to be judged individually. There are 500,000 of them. So that's going to take a while. So we'll see. I don't know if this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but it seems like exactly the sort of thing they would. Have any of you seen the Tucker Carlson show where he's talking to Kurt Weldon, who was in Congress for years and has a lot to say about 9/11? I don't know what to believe about any of that. So I'll just say that I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but apparently this Kurt Weldon, who had been chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, so, a serious politician, and he publicly questioned the accuracy of the 9/11 report that he thought was basically, an inside job. And in retaliation, the Bush administration sent federal agents to his daughter's house and ended his political career. So now apparently he's telling the truth because he's 77 and he just feels like it's time to do. Now, let me tell you my evolution in this whole 9/11 story. When 9/11 happened, I was really only thinking about the big picture stuff, and I'd hear all the conspiracy theorists, and they're blaming Israel, and they're blaming Saudi Arabia, and they don't think Bin Laden's even real, or just all kinds of crazy stuff. But I didn't pay much attention to it because I thought I saw the airplane hit the building, and I saw the other airplane hit the building. If I see it with my own eyes, and then the building goes down, well, I'm going to think that's what the problem was. But the other day, now time has gone by, and we've learned how many things that we thought were true were just absolute bullshit. The Kennedy assassination, pretty much everything that we've been taught by our government is fake. So now I'm open to it. So I'm open to some good conspiracy theories. But I'll tell you the one thing that I can't get past. I was watching some clips of the towers coming down, at the moment when they collapsed. And it looked like it was just dust. Like somehow the buildings had turned all that metal into dust. And there was like nothing but a big pile of dust at the bottom. And I thought, that doesn't look natural. I mean, that doesn't even look like a plane hit it. And then, of course, there's Building 7 that never made any sense. So I think I'm squarely on the conspiracy theory side, but I don't know which conspiracy theory. So I don't know. There's probably about 5 different versions of conspiracy theories. So one of them is that the planes were operated remotely, and they were not even piloted by the hijackers. I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it, though. I don't think you could be that accurate, doing it remotely. But maybe. I'm open to any theories about that because none of it looked organic or real. And we don't live in a country where the committee that studies it can be trusted, ever. So there's something going on. Well, you may have heard that China, in retaliation for the tariffs, Trump's tariffs, um, is using what I call the Dilbert method to deny us rare earth materials. Now, it's only 7 of them. So if you want to get some samarium or gadolinium, or if you're a little low on terbium, or you just can't get enough dysprosium or lutetium, if you'd like some scandium or yttrium, it's going to be harder to do. But instead of saying we're not going to give you these, China does a total Dilbert. And instead of saying, you can't have them, they say, well, there'll be some new restrictions and you have to just apply. So you can't just buy them, you have to apply. And it doesn't apply just to the United States, it's to everybody. But it's kind of genius because they can say, we didn't ban them. You just have to fill out the paperwork and you can have them. But how long is it going to take for them to process the paperwork? I think if it's America, it's going to take a while. So that's a classic Dilbert trick where you're acting like you're completely helping. Oh, no, it's just some paperwork. Yeah, we can even tell you how to fill it out. Here you go. Just fill out this paperwork and you can get your rare earth minerals. Well, good luck with that because it looks like they're going to Dilbert that. According to the Macau News, China is significantly outpacing the US and the European Union in the use of AI in research. Is that good? How are they using AI in research? Is it writing the research papers? I don't think there's anything that it does that would help research because you can't really trust it like you would like to trust science. So how does that work? Anyway, I feel like this is just another one of those things where on any given day, I'll see a story that everything that China builds is crap and they don't know how to do anything and their buildings fall down and their bridges fall down and their bridges are made with corn. Actually, corn. I read that today. There was some bridge that the inner structure was part corn. Corn on the cob, even. It wasn't even just the corn. So I don't know if that's true. But then you hear another story. It's like they're way ahead of us on science, and they're way ahead of us in AI. I don't think we know anything about China. China's just like a black box to me because it's either falling apart and they're on the verge of going out of business, or they're the dominant country in the world and nothing can stop them. But China is always opposites. There's always a story about how great they are. At the same time, there's a story about how horrible they are and how much trouble they're in and how it's all going to fall apart. I don't know what to believe. Well, Scott Pressler is telling us that California blocked a voter ID legislation. So even though the vast majority of people want voter ID for voting, they want ID for voting. California blocked it. That's the politicians. But apparently, one of the state representatives is going to do a citizens initiation project to put it on the ballot. If it gets on the ballot, it's got about a 64% approval. So looks like the legislature isn't going to be able to block this. It's going to be on the ballot because all they need is 1 million signatures. I think you could get 1 million signatures. I mean, that's a big number, but I'll bet you can do it. Trump says he's going to put a temporary exemption on auto parts from foreign countries because the auto industry likes it. And that's a temporary exemption to give companies time to switch from parts made in Canada to Mexico and beyond. Now, temporary, how long does Trump think it would take for people to move manufacturing of car parts back to the United States? That doesn't happen quickly, does it? Or are there just certain machines that are in Mexico or Canada, and if they just move them to America, everything would be fine? So maybe it's just that. They've got machines that make these parts, and if you move the machines in the United States, you can make them here. Can't be that hard. All right. Did you know that Senator Schumer apparently still hasn't condemned the attacks on Tesla? And EPA Chief Zeldin, he was kind of slamming him, saying, he said that Senator Schumer was asked about the Tesla dealership attacks and ignored it, then turned around and went after Elon. It's unbelievable to me that Schumer can't just say, no, I'm against domestic violence or domestic terrorism. That would be a real easy thing to be against, but he won't do it. So we have to assume he's in favor of it, because it wouldn't be hard to say you're not in favor of it. So here's what I've concluded about this chaos stuff. You know, Trump's always being accused of chaos. I think the Democrats have made a good case that Trump has brought chaos into the markets. But what they haven't done is made a good case that chaos is worse than the situation we're in. Because the situation we're in, we're heading toward a debt explosion that was going to kill us for sure. And then we've got a trade situation that would kill us for sure, over time. So even if they're right that Trump's bringing a lot of chaos, and I would say there's a lot of moving parts. So if you want to call that chaos, sure. But they haven't made the case that chaos is worse than the status quo, doing things the way we did it. So that's my challenge to them. And if they think that the way that we should go forward is that, no, we want to make the cuts and we want to fix trade, but we're going to do it with a scalpel, that's just dumb. Because that's the way everything's been done forever, and it got us into this situation. Do you think if we had just individually called 130 countries and said we'd like to negotiate our trade deals, that they would be eager to help us? I don't think so. I think it's the chaos and the fact that Trump just scared the crap out of everybody who does business with the United States. It's the chaos. That's why 130 have contacted the U.S. and are trying to do a deal, which probably will be better for us. I don't know if it'd be better for them. So yeah, chaos is great. Just don't try to pretend that you could have done it with a scalpel, and smart people could have sat down and figured out a new trade deal. That's not a real thing. We would have done that decades ago if that were real. Nobody could do that. You have to be a big gorilla and scare everybody, and then you can get some stuff done. That's what Trump is doing. It's let's say it's directionally correct chaos. There, just introduced a new term, directionally correct chaos. Well, Tulsi Gabbard and her husband have been threatened with by some guy, Ali Akbar Mohammed, and he was accused of sending threats, including statements like, you and your family are going to die soon. I will personally do the job if necessary. I don't think we appreciate enough how brave you have to be a conservative in the government. I'm not sure if she would call herself a conservative, but she's, sort of on the Trump team. You have to be pretty brave because the crazies are all activated. And the thing I'm wondering is, why are there not conservative crazies who are doing similarly terrible things to Democrats? Is there some reason that's not happening? I'm not saying it should, but I can't figure out why it's all coming from one side when crazy people are more universal. They're all over the place. So anyway, I'm glad that Tulsi will be okay because that guy got picked up. According to Breitbart, Christina Wong is writing about how the CIA director, Michael Ellis, is saying that they're going to craft a CIA, let's say, organization or system to fight the cartels. And that had never been their top priority, I guess. So they're going to use the skills that they've learned taking down terrorists in other countries, and they're going to open their aperture, as they say, on terrorism and go after the cartels. Now, didn't you always assume the CIA was on the side of the cartels? Because I did. I don't think it's simply a case that they weren't working on the cartels before. I feel like the big change had to be, the big change had to be they'd be willing to go after the cartels. So maybe under Trump they will. We'll see. So here's a sign of the times. If you were trying to understand how well California is being run, and you could only hear one story, this might be the one that sums up all of California. So there's a Democrat in California who proposed a bill for students to be able to live in their cars amid the housing crisis. The Daily Caller News Foundation is writing about this. So Corey Jackson introduced a bill that students can live in their cars on campus parking lots. Now, they would hope it would be temporary. At least that's what they'd hope. But just think about the fact that a student at, let's see, which of the colleges? California State University locations, 20 California community colleges, and that people are going to live in their cars because there's not access to affordable housing. There's housing, it's just not affordable. All right. Do you remember, the mayor of Boston, Mayor Michelle Wu? Well, according to the National Pulse, her campaign in 2021 accepted $300,000 from a fundraiser reportedly tied to a Chinese Communist Party influence agency. Do you ever wonder, how much money China spends influencing Americans? It's got to be a lot. By the way, you don't hear the heavy equipment right outside my window, do you? It's not supposed to start until 8, but they like to get a jump on it. I've heard that you can't hear it because my microphone is nicely directional. But boy, could I hear it. Yeah, $300,000 from a Chinese Communist Party influence agency. Now, again, I have to complain. As far as I know, nobody's ever offered to bribe me. And I'm thinking, what's up with that? I'm pretty sure I wouldn't take a bribe to, influence, but nobody offered? Come on. At least offer so I can turn it down. Well, meanwhile, over in France, a number of their prisons have been attacked. So there's gunfire and cars on fire and all kinds of chaos. But at least 8 prisons around France were hit overnight. And some are saying it's the narco underworld, that it's basically the drug criminals, and that they're mad because It's a pushback against France's new anti-drug crackdown. So apparently the underworld drug people in France have enough firepower that they can attack 8 prisons at the same time. I swear to God, I saw this story completely different earlier in the day. I thought it looked like an Islamic attack, but then it morphed into a narco underworld attack. So that's probably the true one. Anyway, well, negotiator Witkoff, who was trying to negotiate peace for Trump in these various wars, he talked to Vladimir Putin, and he said that the talks were, quote, compelling. Does that sound like he's going to have some peace right away? The talks were compelling. That doesn't sound good. I mean, it doesn't sound like progress. He said the Russian leader was open to a permanent peace deal with Ukraine. Yeah, that's what everybody says. And then Witkoff says, I think we might be on the verge of something that would be very, very important for the world at large. It took a while for us to get to this place. Do you think they're really close? I don't. I don't think they're close. I don't know what they've agreed to or what they haven't, but I'm going to say not close. And Witkoff said that after 5 years of talks, he saw a deal, quote, emerging, and a possibility to reshape the Russian-United States relationship through compelling, there it is, compelling again, commercial opportunities that would give real stability to the region. What do you think that would be? Rare earth minerals and gas? I don't know. So I'm going to say sounds good, but I don't think it's real. I don't think it's real, but maybe I'm wrong. Meanwhile, Ukraine has developed what they call the Alligator 9 drones for the sea. So I guess it's a drone on the ocean that can release other drones. So it's an unmanned ship that can let other drones fly out of it and attack things that will attack the Russian Navy, basically. Now, what it doesn't say is apparently this is a Ukraine invention. So nobody's saying that they bought it from somebody. Has Ukraine reached a point where they can develop really high-tech drones and that they can make them in Ukraine? Or are they coming from somewhere else and Ukraine is just taking credit for it? But it does seem to me that if the peace deal doesn't get done pretty soon, the war is going to turn into just a total drone war because Ukraine doesn't have enough people. So they're just going to use drones for everything. So it looks like they're going to drone it up for the Navy. They also have a laser. So they can put a laser on this Alligator 9. And it can shoot down drones or fry enemy. Well, it can launch its own drones, but it can fry enemy drones and helicopters and missiles. So really? Did Ukraine really invent something that has laser defense and is super high tech and it can launch all these other drones against ships? I don't know. I feel like somebody must be behind it more than Ukraine. But on the other hand, Ukraine was working pretty hard to become the best military drone country, and they needed it. So maybe they did do it. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Witkoff said talking about their Iran deal. So Witkoff said that the U.S. is prepared to allow Iran to enrich uranium at a low level if it is subject to stringent verification, which would be a significant shift in the White House's position. Do you think that Iran is going to literally say, all right, we won't make a nuke? Because it's all they have to say. And then there's a peace deal. They don't. I'm not even sure they need to mean it. They just need to say it. So I think the game from Iran will be to, stall maybe as long as possible while they're building their nuke. But I think maybe at some point they're just going to say, yeah, totally. We agree not to have a nuke while they're building it in their secret secret mountain fortress. Because they're doing all the good stuff deep underground. You can't imagine that there's a factory sitting above ground that could get bombed. So how would we ever really know if Iran stopped making nuclear weapons? How would we ever know that? Because don't you think they could hide that completely? I don't know. Seems like we'd never really know. So I don't think there's going to be an Iran deal anytime soon. I saw on the Hill the headline that says there's a buzz building around AOC's future. A buzz. I don't think there is. I think there's the media trying to create a buzz around AOC because they see her as potentially good campaigner. I don't know if it's her time to be president. She's a little young, but that's also part of her advantage. She would sell herself as being the next generation. But apparently AOC is helping Bernie draw massive crowds. But I think when you hear something like there's a buzz, it's the media trying to create one. So I don't think the buzz is out there. I think the media is trying to create the buzz because they really need to find a Democrat who can make a dent. Do you think AOC could beat a traditional Republican if she ran for president? Let's say J.D. Vance, somebody like that. How would she do in a debate against J.D. Vance? I feel like she wouldn't do that well because he's good at it, and we'll see. Well, there's a new cement, according to Sujita Sina. There's a new cement that can turn heat into electricity, and then the building can help power itself. I saw a bunch of comments when I reposted this on X. Everybody thought that the building was going to collapse, and it's terrible cement, and that it's a bio-inspired material with a Seebeck coefficient of negative 40.5 millivolts. I don't know what any of that means. But apparently they're going to have super cement. I don't know if I'd want to build my building with a cement that was made to develop power, because it's made out of corn. The building is mostly made out of corn. Anyway, that's all we got for today. I'm noticing that a lot of the news just looks the same. So instead of just covering every story, if it looks like the same news you've seen somewhere else, then it's not fun to talk about. So Trump's going to get busy this week, and you've got your taxes to pay today. Remember, it's tax day. Don't forget. I won't take your calls. I can see why. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining. I'm going to talk to the locals people privately. And the rest of you, I'll see same time, same place tomorrow. Thanks for joining.